The finish is nearly non-existent as a swirl of wind blows expectations out of the window. As patience dwindles, I venture into my last sip. Oh my, the golden idol has been found. My Indiana Jones treasure has been found. Marshmallow at last. If not, only for a fleeting moment. As the cave crumbles around me Is this guy serious? Okay. Nick, my God, dude. Did you write this, Zika?
I swear to God, dude. You can
me?
look this shit up. Nick Anderson. Google it.
Yo, yo, yo. It is fantastic to have you with us for another pour. I'm Ryan O'Leary.
And I'm Mike Zika.
And this, of course, is the Bourbon Playbook.
This is another podcast in the basement.
Thank you, Jules.
Spider-Man.
We've got another fancy-looking bottle of brown juice to get into this week, and I'm looking forward to it. First and foremost, though, Zika, it only took us about 20 episodes, but we have our first extremely official bourbon shelf here in the basement. It used to be a closet, but no longer, my friend. What do you think?
Honestly, just super impressed. First and foremost, not because it's anything you did, because we both know your carpentry skills, but honestly, KDK crushed it. I'm about to call her Heidi, the tool girl from Tim the Tool Man Taylor.
Yeah, great call out.
Yeah,
I love
man,
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's a former artist. So she used to put together displays and shit. She brought all the tools to the relationship.
Of course.
I barely had power tools when we met. Now we have a whole tool library, as we like to say, and it's mostly because of her. It's all because of her. Let's be honest. Check out the Bourbon Shelf. Let us know what you think on social. We appreciate you all. It's great to have you. We do have there on the site, tbplaybook.com, Zika. We do have an area where you can drop us a dram. You can leave us a message. It'll go straight to our email. And you can communicate with us, ask us questions, tell us we're great, tell us we suck. And we have actually been getting quite a few drams, right, Zika? So we're going to start pulling this out. For those that have dropped us a dram, we appreciate you. We have all of these, and we're going to start shouting you out on the program.
You've got mail.
Excellent. Question from the box this week. We get a message from Ryan Brown. Ryan asks, can we pump the brakes on the Vikings? Let's see J.J. McCarthy not drop a steaming Darnold first before we drop our pants and J.J. ourselves.
Boom. Roasted.
Okay, wait a minute. Ryan Brown from New Hampshire?
From New Hampshire.
Okay, this is big man. This is one of my best buddies.
The big man.
This is one of my homeboys. I have not heard this dram yet, but that is fucking hilarious. And that is okay, continue. I'm excited now. Keep going.
So he transitions into now moving on to more important business. What do you look for while searching the shelves for a new bourbon?
Good question.
For me, I always start at proof versus price. I have a hard time justifying a high price for a low proof bourbon. An example of that is when a bourbon is $60 for a sub 100 proof. Also, if you want to branch out and start the burger playbook, I'll move to Minnesota tomorrow.
The Juicy Lucy. You got to come to the Brook. You got to come out here, big man, and you got to try Juicy Lucy. The stuffed burger. That's the Minnesota thing.
Oh, so good.
It's so good. That's a good question, right? When you're in the aisle looking at hundreds of bottles of juice and trying to figure out what to buy, high price versus high proof. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid question. And this is something, honestly, I still struggle with myself, right? There's no one right way to say this or a right way to answer this. But I think what you're talking about is, you're paying for a watered down potential $60 bottle at a 90 proof, and you want to make sure that it's worth the price at the end of the day, right? So in my mind, when I'm thinking through this, 90 proof, $60, I don't even really look for those anymore. But there's a couple things if I wasn't looking for like more of a cast strength type bourbon, anything over kind of that 100 proof price point. Maybe I had some friends or some guests coming over that maybe aren't into bourbon as much and just trying to see what's out there. I look for a couple things. So first is going to be the mash bill and age statement. So sometimes maybe I'm in the mood for like a higher rye spice or like a wheat forward mash bill. And that's when I'm going to make that selection, just kind of scanning the back of labels. And honestly, a lot of times I'm either texting my buddies in my bourbon group, or I'm just Googling, like, what are the tasting notes? What's the mash bill? And what's the age statement ultimately too? That'll tell you a lot, right? So you'd hope like a 6-year at a 95 proof can beat, a high proof mystery juice at the end of the day, right? You never know. So those are some things I like to keep in mind. And then another thing is just like the distillery in general, right? So typically there's a lot of brands out there, especially nowadays. There's a lot of different brands that are popping up that do have some pretty good juice. I love how the competition is really getting aggressive out there with all these new distilleries popping up, right? Whether, they don't have the story behind them, but it could be a pretty good bottle from MGP or some other distillery that's churning out these bottles in these barrels. But when I'm looking for something consistent, I might, lean towards a Buffalo Trace product or Heaven Hill or Wild Turkey even. So I'll roll the dice on those, even if they're a little bit lower proof, just assuming I kind of know that profile, and who knows, it could be something that could hit, right, for myself or my guests. And then finally, it's kind of sad, but the shelf appeal, right?
The fancy bottle.
Exactly. Something that you can impress your guests with at the end of the day, right? So sometimes if it looks like it's, if it came straight out of a speakeasy or a saloon, this is something that I'm looking for, that, that design on the bottle, the gold foil, the wax dip, the label, the art, everything that comes with it, and is something that's unique that maybe someone else hasn't tried or seen. That's kind of the third thing that I look for. So great question on that. Very valid question, Ryan. I appreciate you taking some time to shout us out on the pod. And yeah, man, best of luck with your next selection. I hope that helps, man.
Yeah, Big Man is he's the best, man. We go way back. Really appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for the dram. Thanks for the donation as well. Folks can also donate to the cause. Rating and review, subscribing on your favorite platform. That supports us as well. That helps us grow. We really do appreciate it. And if you want to get in on the conversation and drop us a dram, check us out on our website, tbplaybook.com.
So my pour of the week this week I've labeled the Backyard Perfection Project. Big news, we finally installed the fence in the back 40, aka the 500 square feet that is behind our house.
Yeah. We're known for having small backyards here in the Brook.
Let's put it this way. It's smaller than, we always make fun of in our complex here, the people that live down the hill have these like big, over $1 million houses. And it's funny because the size of my backyard is smaller than the size of some of their indoor basketball courts.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a thing. There are indoor basketball courts in the Brook.
Several. I've toured them. But anyway, so my two pups, Remy and Rosie, are officially fenced in. So no more scooter chasing, kid tackling chaos, while I'm basically waiting for the pet police to come by. And
that's too bad, because that's entertaining.
Yeah, I'm literally waiting for a subpoena for these pups. Like, to give you a picture, there's a kind of a path that goes behind my house, like a paved path that kind of connects the neighborhoods to the pool. Mm-hmm. And there's always little kids like running past, and golf carts, and I mean, you name it, right? And the pups are always like, I want to chase that thing, and I want to say hi and jump up on it, get all up in it. You know what I mean?
Super friendly dogs, though.
Yeah. I mean, they're very friendly, very friendly. And, they're never going to bite anybody, but they're just like, hey, what's up? I'm Remy, I'm Rosie. And most people are like, dude, back up. You know what I mean? They have no boundaries. No boundaries. One time, Remy actually, I let her out, and she literally bulldozed over this little girl that was walking with her mom, like hand in hand, that lives 2 doors up from me. And they're new. They just moved to the neighborhood. And the little girl is clearly, she just like is not familiar with dogs. And she just starts bawling, and her mom like quick grabs her, and she like doesn't say anything to me. And I feel like super bad, because I've said hi to the dad a couple times. He seems like a homie. And I felt so bad that I talked to my wife, and I was like, man, I feel really bad about like letting Remy out. And she like stormed this little girl, knocked her over. She was bawling all the way home.
It was Remy?
Remy, yeah,
like
the little 14-pound
yeah.
Shih Tzu Bichon. And I hate to admit this, but I baked them cookies and I brought them over as like a peace treaty to like, don't call the pet patrol on my dog.
Listen, pet dick. How would you like me to make your life a living hell?
Well, I'm not really ready for a relationship, Lois, but thank you for asking. Hey, maybe I'll give you a call sometime. Your number still 911? Oh, righty then.
What kind of cookies we talking about?
I mean, chocolate chip.
Okay.
I mean, they received it with open arms, right? So we're on good terms, I think, for now, and they won't be going out in the front yard anymore, right? They're sticking in the fenced-in area, but
it's too bad.
Yeah. So for now, they're fenced in, chaos is contained. On top of that, winter finally peaced out, and
it's been nice.
Yeah, I'm stoked to walk the dogs without a parka on, or a hat, trying to hide this big, bush of hair, the big lettuce patch on my head, and season depression. It's melted, man. The pores are flowing. Life is good, and the only thing that is getting ice now is my bourbon.
All right, for my pour of the week, Zika, kind of a celebratory pour this week. After about a year and a half of living in Minnesota, after we moved from, again, big man's neck of the woods, New Hampshire. We moved from New Hampshire, came out here for my wife's job. We finally, this past weekend, got the garage cleaned out and organized. Okay? That has been the most neglected space in our home since we moved.
As it always is, let's be honest.
Yeah. Sorry, got to call bullshit there because yours is like pristine. You're an a-hole. Screw you and your garage.
Okay, no kids, 2 dogs.
That's true. But yours is so well organized, and it actually, you've made me feel bad about myself having to look across the street at your beautiful garage when mine is just ridiculous. So in our neighborhood, the Brook, as we call it, we have the HOA, right? It does not allow you to have a shed on your property. But what we are blessed with here in these new homes is these like 3-car garages. Pretty much every house has a 3-car garage.
Yeah,
I think
great.
Some of them have 2-car garages, but like they all have a garage.
Yep.
Since the day we moved in, we've had our 2 vehicles on one side and just a pile of crap on the other, right? Just a pile of crap on the other side. We're talking lawn tools, lawn mower, kid toys, every kid toy you could think of, including like 5 big wheels. I don't know how we've accumulated all these fucking big wheels. I just don't know what we're going to do with them all. Stop buying my kid big wheels, family members listening. Stop. He doesn't need another one. Garden tools, chairs. There was an inflatable pool toys, which until this past weekend still had air in them from the summer, right? There's just like just this giant, unorganized pile of crap, right? So we rarely keep our garage doors open. Usually I shut those things immediately because I don't want people seeing my side of the road compared to your side, okay?
You're all insecure on me. Quit it.
Very insecure. You always have put our garage to shame, so that's good for you. But it's going to go to Katie K's head. But I mean, I have to give her another shout out, not only for the shelf in our closet, our bourbon shelf, but also for like setting a date to clean the garage and then holding me to it because this past weekend when we cleaned the garage, I was ready to bail. I woke up, I was just not in the mood. Like allergies were acting up. I was just like, hell no, this ain't happening today. And she was like, no, it's happening. And I could just tell, like, dude, she had that look in her eye in the morning. I'm like,
determination, man. Yeah.
It's happening. But the second pour this week goes out to you, neighbor Mike.
All right.
And your wife, Lizzie. You took our crazy 3-year-old son off our hands. Julian goes by Jules. His friends call him Jules, right? You had him for about 2.5 hours. He had a blast. He was so happy. By the time he came back, you guys dropped him back off. We had got the job done. So very sincere thank you and cheers to you and the wife, first of all. But also, like, how was chilling with Jules, man? How was having a 3-year-old?
Jules was a gem, right? Let's put it that way. I mean,
he's a good boy.
I'm almost 35 now. I have 3 brothers and sisters, 5 nephews and nieces on my side alone. And then Liz's side is, God, I don't know how many. I don't have enough fingers and toes.
Big family.
At this point, yeah. So, I mean, I've grown up with just, having to take care and babysitting all those individuals. So for me, it's like there's always that awkward, initial, hey, buddy, what do you like to do? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? You kind of feeling them out, make sure they feel comfortable. And Jules right away, he's like, I want to see your toys.
He'll tell you. He'll tell you. He's got a good vocabulary for a kid his age.
He does, man. And it's so funny because he's like, I want to see your toys, neighbor Mike. And he brought over a bag of toys like Mr. Potato Head and Chutes and Ladders or Candyland or just like a ton of stuff. And the funny thing is we spent the first 30 to 40 minutes going through all of my toys, which are actually dog toys, but
of course,
when you're 3 years old,
kid toys.
Yeah, exactly. When you're 3 years old, everything's a toy. So the next thing you know, he's pulling out like an octopus and like, toys that are missing legs and giraffes. And like, I mean, they kind of look like kid toys, but realistically, again, they're missing the ears and like half of the face and a foot or two.
Yeah.
And he's just throwing them around. The dogs are chasing him around. So literally I'm just sitting there kind of laughing at him. And, he'll ask me questions and I'll, like one point I was asking him like, hey, do you know what that is? And he's like, that's an octopus. I'm like, how the hell do you know that?
He's smart.
Like, yeah.
I don't know where he gets it. Not me.
No, man, like it was unreal. It was really cool. Just going back and forth with somebody who has kind of the same IQ and sense of humor that I do.
Yeah, seriously.
So it was a blast, man. And then probably my favorite part of the story, I was like, I promised I'd take you out for some ice cream, right? And he was super stoked. And so we go out. First, we had to make a run to Target. And I was like, hey, listen, I know this kind of sucks, but we got to do a little grocery shopping. But you know what that means? You get to pick out a toy. And he's like, ooh, yeah, let's go.
Which
Target.
he thinks that's what everybody does when they go to Target. Like he thinks like a normal thing is to go to Target and you get to pick out one toy. We do our groceries and we're like, all right, dude, pick out one toy. And it could be a cake pop. It could be an actual, like a cake pop from the Starbucks.
Yeah.
Or like, a snack or a toy or whatever. It's usually something small, but we usually let him pick something out. So the fact that he got to go with neighbor Mike and neighbor Lizzie and still pick out a toy, he just thinks this is what happens. He thinks this is what everybody does at Target. Like he has no sense of like what the real world is really like.
And it's free.
And it's hilarious.
It's all free. It's the ultimate play place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
And so it's funny. So we're kind of going through, we grab our groceries and like, all right, boss, thanks for holding up, pulling it together. I appreciate you. You've been a good sport. Let's go get you a toy. Let's check out the toy section. How does that sound? He's like, yeah, so he's all
loves
stoked.
Toys, man.
Yeah. And so we get to, there's like 7 rows of toys.
I know.
So we just go up and down. The first one he grabs are like Legos, right? There's like a Spider-Man Lego set. He's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, damn. I'm like, it's kind of break. That's like $40,
yeah,
bro.
no.
I'm like, you sure you want that?
You say no to
yeah.
that. And you're allowed to say no.
I know, but I mean, it's what I do for my nephews, So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, man, it's up to you. So he grabbed that. We put it in the car for a little bit, and then we kind of round the corner, and then next thing you know, we run into a Hot Wheels set, and there was some type of Marvel character, and he's like, ooh, let me see that. So we take it, we put it in the cart. We're like, all right, you like this? Like that's pretty cool, man. And he's like, yeah, I like that. And then we go around the next aisle. And then there's these like laser swords, like Star Wars, like you fling them out and then it kind of pops out a little bit longer. I don't know how to explain that. It's like a 4-tiered, you kind of shove it in and it like, if you flick it out, the whole thing pops out.
Yeah, no, I got you.
And so we find ourselves playing laser swords for the next 5 minutes until my wife comes and is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, let's go. I'm like, all right, sorry.
You're just like me. He was loving it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, bro, let's grab the laser sword and let's boogie home. And he's like, nah, I don't want that. And as we're leaving, there was like a Spider-Man stuffed doll and he's like, yeah, I might want that. And then right as he said that, he turned his eye and he's like, whoa, look at those balls.
Oh, gross. Did you see that guy's balls?
Yeah, they were weird looking.
$1.99. I'm like, yeah, these balls are cool.
Perfect.
So he gets it and it just doesn't leave his side. And I'm like, all right, you get one toy. Like, are you sure you want this and not the laser sword or the Legos? Or he's like, I want the ball, neighbor Mike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, boss, let's do it. Honestly, it was just a blast taking care of him. He's such a good kid. Like I'm just so surprised. Typically kids are either like throwing tantrums or like, especially going through Target, like grocery shopping.
Yeah.
The kid's just super curious. He's at that fun, curious stage, which I absolutely love. You can teach him, you can have a conversation. He's asking you questions that make you think wow, I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, good question. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
so-
it's next level when you start having conversations like that with them.
yeah, definitely could have done it without Liz, right? Like she's the trooper. She's holding it up and hanging out and playing with him. And like it was a great combo there. Anyway, cheers, bro. It was a fun time.
No, yeah, the garage is no longer an eyesore. It's in much better shape. It's now functional. Used to make me and Katie K need all the bourbon every time we walk through that fucking garage, which was a lot. It's such like a happy place to be in because there's nothing on the floor anymore. It's just like it's an open space. Cheers to everybody. Celebratory pour. Let's go.
Cheers.
All right, it's about that time for us to break out our bourbon of the week. What do you got for us, Zika?
So yeah, this bottle is the Michter's Toasted Barrel Finish. So it's a limited release, and we'll get into a little bit more about what that means. But before we do,
Sounds hard to find.
it is hard to find.
Okay.
Very hard to find. I actually got this off the secondary from my buddy Matt, transported by Ryan.
Did you get a good deal?
I got a fair deal.
Okay. It wasn't good.
It's fair. I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, you're not going to find this really on a shelf anywhere. Again, this is something where the price point on this roughly about 110 MSRP. Secondary, I think I got this for right around 170, 180.
Okay.
We're looking at a proof of 91.4. Bourbon accolades on this bottle. We have gold medal at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Top 20 whiskeys of the year by Whiskey Advocate, and one of the most unique toasted bourbons from Breaking Bourbon. Is that a number 2 pencil I see in front of you?
No. It's a pen. I got my pen.
All right.
My pen, my notepad, my brain. That's all I need for the history lesson here
All
on
right.
the pod.
All right, buckle up. Here we go.
Let's go.
All right, so Michter's is one of America's oldest whiskey brands. Again, a lot of this is recap from episode 3 when we first covered Michter's small batch, but I think it's relevant and just a kind of fun to dive back into a little bit of the history behind this. So this dates back to 1753 when a Swiss Mennonite farmer, John Schenk, started distilling rye whiskey in Pennsylvania. So again, that's the Legacy series, Baumburgers and Schenks. Absolutely fantastic. We'll cover it on the pod at some point here. Those are actually probably 2 of my top 10 bourbons. They're just absolutely dynamite. The original distillery was known as Baumburgers Distillery, and it survived both the Revolutionary War and Prohibition, barely. So my favorite kind of fact to call back here is it was reported that George Washington allegedly purchased Michter's rye to fuel his troops at Valley Forge. That's why those guys were like ripping their shirts off, getting dirty, loading those muskets at 2 times the speed.
It's like
that's why.
It's like we said last week. It's the Gatorade. It was the Gatorade of its time.
It's the Gatorade of the 1700s, baby.
Michter's Rye. I love that.
Following that fun fact, the brand actually went bankrupt in 1989 for a while. So it was thought to be lost forever until it was revived in the 1900s. So fast forwarding the clock even more, who owns it today? So Michter's is privately owned by Chatham Imports, a company run by Joe Magliocco. He was actually a former Wall Street guy that turned into a whiskey revivalist. So he's the reason that this was brought back from the bourbon graveyard. So instead of Joe, buying this, really fancy Porsche, like mid-career, right? He instead bought a forgotten 200-year-old whiskey brand and made it a unicorn. So for years, nobody really knew where Michter's was made. So Michter's was actually sourced for a long time, likely from the big Kentucky players like Brown-Forman and Heaven Hill, right? Like we spoke about in previous episodes. So the brand was kind of tight-lipped and had these secret recipes. Still to this day they do as well. But they eventually opened their own distillery in Shively, Kentucky in 2015. and also operate a micro distillery in downtown Louisville, Fort Nelson Distillery as well.
It ain't Louisville. I said it's Louisville.
And who's the master behind this maturation? It's actually Andrea Wilson, another gal that's kind of holding down the fort here. So
love it.
Just like Uncle Nearest, we got another female in the driver's seat. So Andrea Wilson was actually the first woman to chair the Kentucky Distillers Association. So she's basically a rock star in the industry and oversees this whole toasted barrel finishing program, right? So just to kind of recap what charred versus toasted barrel means within bourbon. So like, what's the key difference? Both charred and toasted barrels influence the flavor in very different ways. So charred barrels, we're looking at quick, high intensity burn, usually about 15 to 55 seconds. It creates that kind of black alligator skin texture inside of the barrel. And then that ultimately enhances the caramelization of the wood sugars, and it brings out that bold vanilla spice and deep oak flavors. So this is the standard for most bourbons when it comes to legal requirements for new charred oak barrels. Now, flipping the coin on toasted barrels, we have more of like a slower, low heat exposure. Think of it like toasting bread, right? Like it takes time. So the process is more deep. It caramelizes that wood layer rather than that heavy char, and it adds richer and softer notes like toasted marshmallow, butterscotch, and sweet oak. And if you've had the Shanks of the Michter's collection, which we just spoke about him, obviously they named one after him.
Yeah.
When I read this, outside of maybe the toasted marshmallow, but truly the butterscotch and sweet oak, that's what I think of when I think of Shanks. It's a fantastic bourbon. You got to try it. We'll cover it soon here.
I was going to say, just based on your descriptions, I would guess like Zika's more into the toasted.
Yeah.
If you had a choice.
I'm a toasty guy. I'm warm-blooded, man.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
You're toasty guy.
Absolutely.
You're toasty. Let's get toasty.
Put me up in front of a campfire, little brown juice. We're living large.
Good day.
So what makes Michter's toasted barrel so special, right? So limited and small batches. So Michter's releases its toasted barrel in small limited batches, and once it's gone, right? So there's no mass production here, and these are very highly sought after drops. You'll see these typically a lot in lotteries, like you'll get a post from a Total Wine or a Hy-Vee Liquors, and there'll be a couple bottles of E.H. Taylor, maybe a Rip Van Winkle, couple Wellers, Buffalo Trace, and then you usually have a Michter's 10-year or, this one as well. So their typical release pattern with these bottles is about 1 to 2 batches per year, and this all depends on the supply and the aging cycles of these barrels. So these batches are extremely limited, and they often range from a few dozen to a couple hundred barrels in total. For example, in 2021, the release of the Toasted Barrel Bourbon came to only 24 barrels, which is kind of wild, right?
It just shows how limited these really are,
Yeah.
It's hard to get your hands on them.
To put things in perspective, some brands actually drop thousands of cases. We're talking thousands. And Michter's might drop a few hundred bottles per state. So if you see one, it's not necessarily a maybe or later situation. It's like, grab it now. You know what I mean? A couple other interesting facts here about the whole process with Michter's is they're heated cycle warehouses. So they're one of the few distilleries that actually heat cycle their warehouses during the winter, forcing that deeper whiskey into the oak and speeding up that flavor extraction profile. And what's the one state that you could think of that a bourbon that we've covered in the past that does this without having to heat up their warehouse?
I'm going to guess Texas or Tennessee.
Texas. Oh,
Texas.
Both probably, yeah. But Texas especially, because we talked about Still Austin and how, they can have a 6-year that tastes like a 8 or 10-year, just based off of that true heat cycle.
They almost have to simulate it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So every bottle is actually approved by Andrea Wilson, the master of maturation, throughout this process. So these bottles are toasted, not charred. So the finishing on these barrels are air dried for about 18 months. and toasted over an open flame instead of charred. And this, again, creates that caramelized sugar and brings out those marshmallow, graham cracker, almost like campfire s'mores type flavors. And the bourbon is truly like an alchemy of work, right? So after the standard aging, the bourbon moves to those toasted barrels for a low heat flavor infusion. So this was first released in 2014. The toasted barrel bourbon became obviously an instant hit. So today it's kind of like the unicorn bottle when it comes to the Michter's line, outside of obviously they have a 10-year rye, 10-year bourbon, even a 20-year, which would be immaculate to get my hands on something like that to cover on the pod. And also they have a rye as well. That's fantastic. I believe it's a barrel strength rye. That is absolutely dynamite. So the real question is Michter's toasted barrel worth the hunt, or is it just, a glorified marshmallow dream in a bottle? Let's find out, shall we? But before we dive into the tasting notes, how about we dive into our newer segment, Hype or Hogwash? The reviews are in.
Boom. Roasted.
User Love X gives it a 6.5 out of 10. Not bad at all, but not blowing me away. I'm glad to have it, but probably won't replace it. Maybe the first release from the distillery, but I'm not in love with it. Not a bad pour by any means. And I could see the bottle going down very, very well with my buddies that prefer lower proof bourbons. It's definitely chuggable and lovely flavors going on, but just not quite enough for the high standards that I hold for Michter's.
All right, let's see what Nick Anderson had to say. Sipping later in the glass offers some lovely hints of brown sugar, molasses. That's something I want to sip on. I want to sip on some molasses when I get into a nice glass of bourbon.
I want to make a jelly sandwich and then sip on some molasses. Why not?
Hints of brown sugar, molasses, and a strong linger of toffee. That sounds good. The finish is nearly non-existent as a swirl of wind blows expectations out of the window. All right, let me say that again.
This is like poetic justice.
The finish is nearly non-existent as a swirl of wind blows expectations out of the window. As patience dwindles, I venture into my last sip. Oh my, the golden idol has been found. My Indiana Jones treasure has been found. Marshmallow at last. If not, only for a fleeting moment. As the cave crumbles around me Is this guy serious? Okay. Nick, my God, dude. Did you write this, Zika?
I swear to God, dude. You can
me?
look this shit up. Nick Anderson, Google it.
As the cave crumbles around me and the boulder lurches towards my impending doom, I find the comfortable embrace of the previously Trant finish. Trant. Truant. Trant. I'm supposed to be the English major.
I'm no
over
linguist,
here. Yeah.
but I believe you're correct.
Pop-Tart crust, artichoke dip, and crunchy toffee chunks come together in a truly electric mix. I want nothing to do with this bourbon anymore. Nick, you're killing it for me, dude. Oh, my God.
This clown.
All that to say 3 out of 5. Middle of the road whiskey, an average showing. Okay.
Boom. Roasted.
Moving on to our next review. User Chalenja described the aroma as sour fart gold.
It's a sour fart that you're surprisingly enjoying.
Correct.
Seems negative to me.
Yeah. It's like those people that like the smell of gas and oil and shit.
Yeah. Warehouse H, funnily?
That's what he said.
Funnily. Warehouse H says, funnily, I think I prefer Maker's 46 to this. Do you know Maker's 46, Zika?
Ouch. Actually, that was my first go-to cocktail mix, because it was that. Honestly, that one's probably on the E5 scale. That one to me is definitely like a budget blend, just because it's actually something that's kind of pleasant to drink on the side, and it's like a step up with like a more full-bodied bourbon compared to like the regular Maker's Mark in general. So 46 is, I mean, that's fair, but I definitely wouldn't ever compare the two together. And then finally, user spelt SIGNDE. This bottle has been open for almost a year now, and there's a reason it's taken me that long to go through.
Should
it.
help it, right?
It should. I just don't think it's that good.
Okay, so just a lot of reviews saying that they just don't think this bourbon is like quite up to the hype, right? It's not living up to the hype. It's hogwash, Zika. So there's only one way to find out. We got to dive into this ourselves and give our take.
Tease me. Let's do it.
Let's go. Let's pop it.
All right, on the nose.
There's obviously a lot going on here.
Yeah, definitely heavy caramel and vanilla for me.
Yeah.
And spice, and the oak obviously is very prevalent.
But I see what you mean. You said we should be either on the palate or nose. It should be that toasted marshmallow.
Yeah.
You talked about.
Yeah.
If you put that in the back of your brain while you drive your nose in, it's that like sweet, toasty kind of aroma that's going on.
For me, I get a lot of, if you pull your nose a little bit away from the Glencairn.
S'mores.
Yeah.
Kind of what I'm getting.
Truly. I'm definitely getting heavy notes of caramel and marshmallow.
Yeah, this is like candy in a glass.
It is.
On the nose.
Truly.
I think it's the moment of truth. What do you think?
Dun, dun, dun. Moment of truth. Let's do it. It's interesting. I liked it better on the nose. I feel like the spice content, I'm getting a lot of like baking spice on the front of my tongue where I usually get that honey, the sweetness.
Yeah.
But I do get a little bit of the sweet caramel and almost butterscotch from the mid to the finish of my palate.
I feel like baking spice is probably the top flavor.
Honestly.
Yeah.
That's like when I said,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I said I don't get a ton of that, like the caramel or the toasted oak, kind of that, what I really prefer, that sweetness on the front.
It's there. It's just subtle, right? It's just
Very
not as
subtle.
prevalent as it is on the nose.
It's very subtle, but it's overpowered by those baking spices. I know like some of the notes they mention is like baked apple, nutmeg, yes, dark chocolate, maybe a little bit of that on the side. But I don't get any, like fruit forward flavors. And the more I sit back and think about it, as I take that fourth and fifth sip, I can definitely taste a little bit of the vanilla, caramel, and marshmallow, but it's kind of on the side of my palate. But again, it's really overpowered by those baking spices.
Yep.
I just really wish that the baking spices were a little bit more tame, and that sweet honey caramel kind of overpowered that, which kind of makes up, I think, for that marshmallow type, mid palate finish. And I'm not getting a ton of that. So that's kind of my verdict.
It's a good bourbon. It's not living up to the expectations that I had from basically what you said about it coming in and your previous experiences with it, and then kind of the history and then the nose, right? I was expecting a little bit more. The reviews weren't great, right?
Right.
The reviews were less than stellar, so then my expectations kind of got tempered. But now trying it myself, I have to agree. I would say it's not a 1. It's not like if I was giving it 5 stars, it's not a 1 star, but it's not a 5 either. It's somewhere in the middle.
For a 90 proof, I think we're in good hands. Like, this is a fantastic 90 proof pour.
Yeah.
But again, that price point and then the rarity.
The rarity and the price point, yes.
Yeah, so that's what beats me down.
And the following and the hype.
Yeah.
Right? There should be more hype around this. It shouldn't be closer to hogwash than hype, right? It should be a little bit closer to hype. It should live up to it a little bit more, based on what your brain's telling you going in. But I agree. I don't think it's not knocking my socks off. I'm not a savant, but it's also not knocking my socks off. I also actually kind of like this. It's an easy one to sip on. It's just your typical lower proof good bourbon, right? It's just not knocking your socks off. I expected it to be a little bit more special.
And when it comes to the aging, it's actually undisclosed, like several things in the Michter's bourbon line. But typically, rumors have it that it's been aged roughly about 6 to 8 years with a little bit of extra time in those toasted barrels. So potentially even an extra year added onto that. And for the mash bill, we have an undisclosed mash bill.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, right?
Typical Michters.
Yeah, exactly. So the aging, undisclosed. Mash bill, undisclosed. But from speculation, And what I found personally myself is it's roughly 79% corn, 11% rye, and 10% malted barley.
All right, so E5 scale for Michter's Toasted Barrel Bourbon. That is our Essential 5 for the Bourbon Playbook. Daily Dram, Impress My Guests, Budget Blend, Saturday Night Sipper, and the Precious, a.k.a. PJ Fleck Pour, the Precious Pour. This is interesting, right? This bottle is the price point and the rarity. It puts itself at least in the conversation for a Precious Pour coming in. But I think after going through the process, definitely not rising to the Precious Pour level. It's not a 5-star bourbon in our opinion. I think we both agree on that. Zeke, you agree? Give me a one-word answer.
I'll give you that.
Absolutely, you give me that. Not a Precious Pour. Saturday Night Sipper, I'm not going to eliminate that one right away. Budget Blend, I'm going to eliminate, right? It's just the price point's too high and the rarity, right? And I think, honestly, that one takes out Daily Dram as well. Can we eliminate those two?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hands down.
And Precious Pour, we eliminated right away, right?
Yeah, so get rid of those three.
I think for me, this is more of a Saturday Night Sipper. I am a little bit newer with bourbon, right? Lower proof. If I put an ice cube in it, it's like I would chug it almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like chuggable with an ice cube. It's like really
Truly.
not that hot. I like that. I think that's a cool characteristic with this bourbon. It's, for a 90 proof neat pour, it's not crazy hot. Like all you're getting is aromas. You're not getting a lot of heat. I think that's good. That's a good thing with this bourbon. It's an easy sipper. I think for me, it's a Saturday Night Sipper. I'm going to guess though. This has Impressed My Guest Zika written all over it because it's Michter's and because of the brand.
Here's what I'm thinking. All right. Saturday Night Sipper. Yeah, I like your point. You bring up a couple key points there. It's something that is a lower proof that you could sit down. You wouldn't mind finishing it if you had a couple sips on the weekend. It's a bottle that you wouldn't mind running through that you enjoy.
Yeah. So it's like it's never going to rise to the level of Daily Dram, but like once a week, absolutely.
Yeah, and I can respect Saturday Night Sipper. But for me, this is something that I'm going to go impress my guests. And the reason for that is because, yeah, you did. I'll give you that. But this bottle alone, right? So I feel like a lot of people that are into bourbon have probably tried Michter's Bourbon Small Batch, right? So they're thinking 90 proof, good, not great, right? They know what they're getting out of it, right? For a $40 to $50 bourbon. This is definitely an upgrade from that. Like not only from, the story behind George Washington feeding his troops at Valley Forge this delicious brown juice. Again, mind you, it was a rye. This is a bourbon, but still same but different. Tomato, same brand, cool story. On the nose, it's absolutely fantastic, right? That's kind of what I'd sell them on.
Delicious on the nose.
Right? I think itself as a 90 proof, excellent. Like this is one of the better 90 proofs that we've definitely covered. Probably the best.
100%.
Hands down. And so for those individuals that are coming over to my place that are like, hey, let's dive into something unique, this 90 proof is something that's unique. It's going to have those characteristics that they're looking for. It is very complex. Yeah, it is very spicy. It's something that doesn't have exactly everything I want it to be, but that's okay. I can tell a sweet story behind it, and it still tastes good for a 90 proof. It's not going to burn their taste buds off. They're still going to be able to enjoy the delicious, Juicy Lucy's that I'm making on the grill, right? So it has those characteristics that I'm looking for. I got some friends coming over, impress my guests, the story, on the nose, tasting notes for a 90 proof, sign me up. Only thing that I would have any discomfort in, like pushing this on my guests, is the price point. But obviously, if I have my friends over, I'm never going to bring up a price point unless they ask, right? Like, hey, where'd you find that bottle? How much was it? Let's not go there. Just enjoy the brown juice as it's in front of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Michter's Toasted Barrel is the definition of impress my guests, in my opinion. It's limited, unique, highly allocated. Unfortunately, the price point doesn't hit as well, but ultimately this bottle is something that you can talk about long after the glass is empty. So next week, we're actually covering a bourbon from Michigan that you've probably never heard of.
They don't make bourbon in Michigan.
But do they?
No. Just because J.J. McCarthy went to college there does not make it a bourbon capital.
You
of the
never
world.
know. You never know. But it's got a very unique flavor profile that might just be illegal in Minnesota. So you don't want to miss out, guys. Tune in. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah. I would say Michter's Toasted Barrel, it's bold enough to impress your guests, and it's easy enough to guess what Zika will pick for his E5 scale. Right? It's not throwing a lot of curveballs at you. It's a little predictable. It's a little predictable if you want.
It is. It is.
But it's also smooth enough to make you forget how much you paid for it, which is probably just a little too much.
Boom. Toasted. And until next pour, stay warm, stay weird. And if you see a bottle like this on the shelf, don't blink. Just schlup it.
Schlup it and then sell it? Or should they pop it open?
Schlup it, sell it, trade it up. Get something good.
Yeah.
Just give back to the bourbon community. That's all I ask.
That's it. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.